Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masechtas Zevachim daf Yud Ches. We are going to begin on Yud Ches Amud Al, 4 lines from the top. So we've been learning in the past couple of dafim, trying to understand our Mishnah on Tesvav Amud Beis, which is the beginning of our parak, which discussed that certain things will make the carbon puzzle. Of course, similar to what we learned in the first parak, Shlol Shma, Pigel. Here we learned in the past couple dafim, a non-Kohen who does the Kabbalah Sadam, for example, or an Onain whose relative had, one of his relatives died, and he has not yet done the Kavura. Unlike a Kohen Gadol, Kohen Hedge is not allowed to do the Avodah there, and it'll be puzzle. And then we also learned about a Tful Yoim and Mechusar Kippurim, and we are now up to we also did Mechusar Begadim. We said Mechusar Begadim in yesterday's daf is just like if a Kohen is wearing the garments, he's a Kohen. If he's not wearing the garments, he has the same status as Mechusar Begadim, and therefore, as we said, it really makes no difference if it's Avodah She'ein Zar Chayv Alav Misa. He's still going to be will still passel. And then the Mishnah continues: Shul Rachas Yadayim B'Raglayim, Oral Tameh Yoshev Oimel Gabi Kalim. With there's some type of a hefsek, so that's what the parak, the Mishnah continues with. So Ashkecha and Mechusar Begadim. I now know, based on what we learned yesterday, that when it comes to someone who is a Kohen but he's not wearing the proper amount of begadim, that will possibly vote. It's just yayin menolan. How do we know when it comes to someone who is intoxicated and then does the avoda in that state, that individual also passel to menolan? So gasiya chuka chuka mechusar begadim. It's actually a gzer shava. So just like as we said by mechusar begadim, as we mentioned already, that individual will pasel the avoda. So too here says Rashi, shesu yain menolan the pasel avoda she'ein hazar chayv lehamisa. So this is actually talking. How do we know that when it comes to shesu yain, in which will pasel the avoda, in which a non-kohen will she'ein hazar chayv lehamisa, that even though this is the case, as we said, where there's not a case where you'd be chayv misa for, nonetheless you would still be chayv. So we said, we're not from Mechusar Kippurim. I b'hatana lahadul bein begomer, but we learned it out from this pasuk, and not from a gzer shava. So Gemara says kanotziv la mikmei deleikum gzer shava. So that pasuk was brought lahadul bein is only before the gzer shava came about, and that's how we learn out shisui yain from that pasuk. However, in the maskana we derive it from this. Gzer Shava, Shisu Yain is learned out from Mechusar Kippurim. I've hatan Mechusar Kippurim hu dekayal mishtu Yain. Understand? I thought Mechusar Kippurim is learned from Shisu Yain, not that Shisu Yain is learned from Mechusar Begadim. So take your pick, but it's not a two-way street. It's got to be learned one from the other, and not either one. So halchi kamer menayin shlo nechaku ben Mechusar Begadim l'Shisu Yain yishol rachatz yadayim b'raglayim. How do we know that we don't make any distinctions? It doesn't that we necessarily learn Mechusar Kippurim from Shisu Yain. No, actually we learn Shisu Yain from Mechusar Begadim. But all it's coming to tell you is that when it comes to these different improper actions or misactions, or lack of actions, that they're all going to be the same, and that will possibly avoda. Talmud Leimer chuka choikel gzer shava. So elul habdil amli. So if now that we have this gzer shava, what is the purpose of al habdil? Look at the Rav loy moikim amayir aleha miyayim atav l'chavi mishum shechus. That when he was teaching Torah, he would not have a speaker for him when it came to his drushes. When he gave a drasha, specifically on Yom Tov. Says Rashi, Mishasha Oicha B'Shasa. The time that people were starting to eat or drink already, Yossi Yom Tov Adamachar, and they're making a Yom Tov until the next day. The Hachimash Makra, Yain V'Sheich Al Teish, don't drink wine. And it says V'chein B'Shash, of course, when you're in the Beis HaMikdash. Also V'chein B'Shash Shi'ataba L'Havdil L'Haydais. Also, when it comes for a person to engage in teaching, Bein davar kedusha or davar choil al tikri shikr, al tihi shekor. So don't teach Torah while you're drunk. So therefore, that's the reason why he didn't want someone who's chosen to assist him, because we didn't know necessarily whether he was going to be drunk. And therefore, he knew himself, and therefore that's what he allowed. So So 1 second, are we in fact saying that we learn yayin from mechus begadim? Is that true? Mahasam nafka. I'll show you that there's another pasuk that tells us this din, because the pasuk says, let's see it in its entirety, v'nostu b'nei Aaron kohen eshel hamizbeach, that the b'nei Aaron put fire on the mizbeach, and v'archu eitzim al eish, and they prepared wood by the fire. So what does that mean? And also b'nei Aaron kohen b'kihunu b'kihunoi liman al kohen gadol shalovash bigdi kohen hedget the avad avodas psula. It's come to tell you that you must wear the begadim that you are slated for. Now you can say, well, Mechusar Kippurim is if, let's say, the Kohen Gadol is only wearing 7 garments, the Kohen Hedget is wearing 3, but what if the Kohen Gadol is mamish wearing the proper clothes of a Kohen Hedget? So this pasuk is coming to tell us this additional chiddush, that it has to be that you have to be the way that you were appointed as a Kohen, and therefore, if you're wearing garments of a Kohen Hedget, but you're like Aharon a Kohen, right? You're the Kohen Gadol, but you're wearing Bidi Hedget, then it'll be possible. So I thought we learn this. So maybe you would think that the only time this is an issue by Mechusar Kippurim, Mechusar Begadim, is only when it comes to something which is Ma'akiv Kapara. Avol avoided the low Ma'akiv Kapara low, but something which is not Ma'akiv Kapara, maybe not, says Rashi. Like, for example, in the Sinas Eish, Shel Hedget, the placing of the fire, the mitzvah of Almihi. It's a mitzvah to do, but it's not Ma'akiv. Sharayesh Shom Eish Shiadim in the Shemayim. Because there's already, as we know, miraculously, fire already came from the Shemayim anyway. So therefore, technically, even though it's true that we have a din, that even though fire comes from the heavens, it's a mitzvah to produce our own fire in the Mizbeach, but nonetheless, it's not ma'akiv. So ema lo tiboy begadim. Maybe you would think you don't need begadim during that part of the avoda. Kamash Malan, that's the reason why, as Rashi explains, the pasuk says v'nosnu b'nei Aharon hakayin eish. Right? Even when he put fire, to tell you he's missing begadim, right? Nonetheless, even if, let's say again, Aaron, the Kohen Gadol, wore the big D hedget, then it would not work. It would still be a problem. So even an avodah which is not ma'akev, like Nesinas Eish, nonetheless would be problematic, and if you're mechusar begadim, even during that. Okay, let's look at question 5. Amai itzrach krav v'nosim b'nei Aaron ha'kohen eish v'aruchu b'nei Aaron ha'kohanim. The kohen b'kinuyo, that he's a kohen gadol, he has to wear his garments and not the garments of a kohen hedget. V'ari kfar yalfin mechusar begadim. Where do you learn that from the pasuk v'chagarta v'chalbashto lehem migvois v'haisel lehem kahuna? So as we said, the pasuk of B'nosnu Eish, we need it to tell you, even when it comes to placing fire, which is an avodah she'eino ma'akva, it's still it's not ma'akav the kapara. Still, if there's mechusar begadim, it's still problematic for that. And the pasuk of Archu al hanasachim being in litor begadim the pasuk kechisor. Okay, we actually didn't see this. I don't think is that having more garments has the same status as having less garments. So I think we did not get to that yet. We did not. I should have waited. V'kati, back in the Gemara, Mahacha nafka, mahasam nafka, Archu b'nei Aaron ha'kohanim asa nesachim b'gaimer, ha'kohanim b'kinuinun, that the kohen has to wear his bigdi kahuna. Mekan l'kohen hedjish shalavish bigdi kohen gadol, v'yadavas psula. So again, we already have another pasuk to tell us apparently the same din. So ima hasam habamina hanimi lechiser abel yitor lo kamashmon. So that's what question 5 says. That when it comes to, you would think that it's the whole issue is if you have less garments. Like for example, a kohen gadol wearing the big day kohen hedget. However, let's say the kohen hedget wears a bidi kohen gadol, so okay, you're not the kohen gadol, but he is still wearing his 4 garments, so he's not mechusar begadim. By the language of mechusar begadim, it means that you don't have the garments, the minimum requisite garments. But if, let's say, you're a kohen hedget and you're wearing more, maybe that's not a chisaron. So that's what the rest of question 5 states. Okay, good. Okay, let's just say TA no. Oh, I didn't mark this down over here in the previous daf. So again, that's we saw that already. If you hold mechusar begadim dezav is kazav dami. Okay, so that's TB 29. Okay, let's see. Big de kahuna. Okay, we didn't do any more questions. We'll get to that. Okay, so Tanu Rabbanan, hayu mirushlin. So let's say a person has garments that are dragging on the ground. He has very long garments, right? They're dragging. Right, they're dragging on the ground because they're so long. So let's see if Rashi says this. Nigrorin, right? Bekarka. They're very long bidi kahuna, so they're not fit. You're wearing them, but they're not fit to your body. Or mesulkin, as Rashi says, min hakarka mitay shehem kitsarim. Let's say they are like way above the ground because they're short, like you're wearing like short pants. Meshuchkim, or let's say they're worn out, because as Rashi says, they're shenim, they're old. The avad avodasok shera. So in this case, even though the pasuk does say, Rashi quotes midobad, that it's supposed to be his particular size, it doesn't make any difference. That's just the mitzvah of alma, it's not ma'akev, and therefore, even though the pants may be too long, we need a tailor. They're too short, they're too long, or a little bit worn out, they're still kosher. And then the Gemara says, Lova shneim mechnasayim. Let's say you, instead of wearing 1 pair of pants, you decide to be a machmir and wear 2 pairs of pants. Or for that matter, shnei avnetim, 2 belts, chaser achas, yaser achas, 1 more, 1 less, but you end up equaling 4. Or shahayisalo ratia al makas basar. Let's say you have a patch on the makkah of your basar, takas begado, underneath your garments, which means that as Rashi says, that's considered to be a chatzitza, because you can't be wearing a band-aid. It has to be that your body is mamish touching the garments and nothing separating. O shahoyu, as we continue the chesed beis, metush tashin. As Rashi says, batit, they're muddy garments. O mikroyin, or let's say they're torn, even if they're new, as Rashi points out. The avad avodasu psul. So, Omer Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel. So we said marushlin ksherin. So even though they're dragging it along, it's still kosher. Mesulkin psulin. However, if they're a little bit high up, right? You're like we would call them, like high pants or something like that, or high waters. So then it's possible. I will sign mesulkin ksherin. I thought we said that they're kosher because they're still pants. So remember, Merchamul kasha kan shesilkan alide avne kan delisnehu mi karaklal. One is that the belt is what's pulling up the pants a little bit, and the other one is that they're just too short to begin with. It's not that they really are the right size, but because you're wearing a belt, the belt causes the pants to get bunched up a little bit. No, actually what's talking about over here that they end up, they're just so short anyway. According to him, it doesn't make a difference. Even if it's just the belt that pulls it up, that is enough to pass. Question 6. How you big din mesulakin avad ha'im avadasuk shera. So again, if let's say that they're so short that the musulakim mikar resembles puzzle, but let's say it's only because of the avnate, the belt, so that's a machlokas. Okay, Rav Huna ikla le argiza. So that's probably going to be our last question before our test, which we're going to be having in a couple of days. Rav Huna Ikla Argiza. So he went to this particular location. Ramale Bar Ushpazinche, and he encountered this host, if you will, and he said, Miyam Shmuel Marushlin Kasherin and Musulakin Psulin. Is it true that he made a distinction, Shmuel did, regarding dragging pants which are kosher, but high waters are possible? Vosanya Musulakin Kasherin. I've learned that even though they're a little bit big, it's kosher. So Malay Barmina Dahi Dishania Ramin Bar Chama. So we already have this answer that we recited before, right? Of Rami Bar Chama, to distinct whether it's the belt that's holding it up, so therefore it's okay. Okay. So El Rav Kasha, but to Rav is a Kasha. Chitema my Marushlin Misulkin Al Yidei Avnate. Maybe it just means that they're only it's only because of the belt. The Avnate Megas Gaias, Megas Agas, that the belt is like the garment, and it was cut to the size. El Masulkin Kasha. So how do we understand? So if they're too long and you wear the belt and it pulls it up, now it's like the right size. However, how do we understand that they're too short? So Omer Rav Zera Rav Chadatani Marushlin. What does that mean? Silken al the Avnik Sharon. It just means that if they were lifted up because of the pants, then because of the belt, then it's kosher. Omer Rav Yirmi Bedifni Marushlin. Shaloit Silkan Tanahi. This is actually a Machlok Tanayim. Desanya. Al Arba Kanafais Kesuscha, regarding the mitzvah of tzitzis, it's supposed to be a four-cornered garment. V'loch shalosh, it cannot be three. Oh, Enu El Arba V'loch Chamesh, maybe it means it has to be a four-cornered garment, not five. You cover yourself, Hari Balos Chamesh Amar. That's already telling us about five. So Hamanim Mekayim Arba was four. Arba v'lo shalish. It's coming to tell you four, not three. So Mar Isel Rabas Balos Chamesh. How do we know to include five? That's okay. Well, Haitzi Balos Shalish is not okay. So Marbani Balos Chamesh, five is allowed. Sheish B'chalal Chamesh Arba, like Sheish B'chalal Mosaimana. Within five is four. So all you need to have is four. So if you have more, that's okay. Umaitzani Balos Shalish Shein B'chalal Shalish Arba. Because within three is not four. But Tanya Idach, another bright, so we say al arba flows kasuscha arba v'lo shalish. It has to be four, not three. Arba v'lo chamish. And here it actually says four and not five. So my love. So the question is five allowed or not? Is it not? B'hakim the Mar Sabar yesim mikain the isidami Mar Sabar command sadami. So one says that if you have five, it's considered like you can almost envision as though it's not there and still okay. Or you can say no. So lo, the kuliyama command isadami, it's really like it's there. So then why is five allowed? V'shani hacha the Rabbi Rachmana Ashadakasaba. The Torah includes five based on this Gezeres HaKosav. Okay. TA 28. Madua begid bal chamish kanafa yischayim betzitzis b'hava mina maskana. So in the havamina, because we'll envision that the five is like it's not five, right? Like it's really four. In maskana, we say no, it's because it's Gezeres HaKosav Asher Dekasaba. The Eidoch back in the Gemara, Hi Asher Dekasaba Mayim. What does he do? Because according to him, he says five is not good. So Meboyle look the the pasuk says you have to see that tzitzis prat l'ksois laila. It's coming to exclude at nighttime. There's no chiyuv of wearing tzitzis at night. Oh, enuela prat l'ksois suma. Maybe it's telling us a blind person because he can't see, it doesn't have to wear tzitzis. Because you aimer ashir tekasaba har ksus suma amar. I already know that it's the notion of a blind person from another pasuk. So over here it's coming to exclude night. So how do we make a distinction between nighttime and someone's blind? So marba niksus suma, that he could be chayiv, right? Because we're saying that Shirtikasaba is even the Ksusuma is because even though it says Risemoso and they can't see, that's true, but Shishin Bariya Eitzel Acher, but other people can see for them. So sight is something which is valuable even to someone who's blind, obviously, because people who could see are able to assist those who are blind. However, no one could see at all, right? So we're in even playing ground that no one could see. So it says bad, that the garments have to be a certain cut of properly. Shu shel boots, specifically of linen. Bad, we also learn shu chadoshim. They have to be new garments. Bad, also shu shizurim. They're supposed to be spun. Bad, shu chutan kofel shisha. And we had this elsewhere. In Masechtas, where is this? Let's find this. This Gemara is so fancy, sometimes it's hard to find where the Maseres Hashas is up here. Okay. Anyway, it has to be like spun on six ply. I think that's what they call it. Bad shel yilbash shel choil imahen. That it has to be that you shouldn't wear weekday garments with it. In other words, bad means only this garment of which is big dekaidish, and you cannot wear a pair of sunglasses, I don't know, or a scarf, right? It has to be dafkadis. Shell boots. I can understand the point. It has to be out of linen. Hakamashman boots in midachrin lo. Nothing else. Elbad shihu chadashim in shchakim lo. Is it true? Now you're telling me the pasuk's mashma only new, not worn out. But we already learned that meshruchim is kosher. So according to you, bad shihu chutin kafel shisha has to be 6 ply. Bad chad chude mashma. Bad is mashma 1. El hakikamer begadim shenemer hem bad. When it says begadim, srich and shihu shel boots, it needs to be of linen. Chadashim new. Shizurin spun. Shihu chutin kafel shisha and 6 ply. Yesh mehen l'mitzvah, yesh mehen l'akev. Some of them are l'mitzvah, like for example the new belt, and some of them are l'akev. So even though Rashi says, what is ma'akev? Boats, has to be linen, has to be spun, has to be 6 ply. However, the fact that it's new is only l'mitzvah. However, if you don't have it that way, it's still okay. It's not ma'akev. Because as we said, meshuchim, worn out garments, is still kosher. Mamai dahai bad kitanahavi. So how do we know that katanahu? How do we know that this word bad is learned out as we established it? Right? How do we know this? So let's see over here. Okay. Right, so I think it's Masechtas. You're right. Masechtas Yoma toward the end of the Masechta. V'alfin b'seder Yoma mikroi devarim shnemer hen sheish chutin kofel shisha v'yofle likuva. Okay. Anyway, so Rav Yossi b'Rebbe Chanina davar ha'oilim in a karka bad bevad. It's referring to something that comes from the earth bad bevad, like one stalk each. As Rashi says, Kani yechida mikol gizoy, that it's like one stalk that comes from each. So that's referring to linen. So the question is, amra, maybe it's referring to wool, because also wool comes from one animal each, right? So amra miftsel. When it comes to wool, that can split into 2, as opposed to linen, which is not, as Rashi says, mischalekes l'shnayim. So Gemara says, so kisnanami mifsel. What do you mean? If we're talking about linen, that also has the capacity to split. So ali de lakusa mifsel. It only can split when you hit it, as opposed to wool, which splits naturally. So therefore, obviously, if you can smash things, you can rip things apart, but it's not really considered to be mifsel. Ravina oimer mahacha. Actually, we learn everything out from the following pasuk, and this pasuk in its entirety in Cheskel is Pa'are Pishtim, regarding the flax or the linen. Yu al Roishim will be on your head. Umichnase Pishtim yu al Masnehem, and garments made out of linen shall be on your loins. Lo Yachu B'Yozah. Anyway, so the pasuk, that's the pasuk. Pari Pishtim, the hats should be made out of linen on your head, and the Michnase Pishtim, which clears bad, hu al Masnehem. Well, Yachru B'Yazah, then you should not gird yourself with a belt. Okay, that pasuk is a beautiful pasuk in Yecheskel, which teaches us it's supposed to be made out of linen. But what did we do before Yecheskel came? How do we know this? So, time 1 second. This Gemara asks this question elsewhere. We learn something, an important halacha from Yecheskel, that Kol ben Nechar, anyone, as Rashi says, who is distanced themselves with their actions because of Aros Libo, that they've done something in which like their heart is disconnected to God, Aro Lev, Aro Basar, Lo Yavo El Mikdashi. Such an individual, which includes someone who's an Aro Basar, he doesn't have a bris milah. Now, even though Rashi says it's not his fault because his brothers died having tried to do a circumcision for them, but they died, so he's not allowed to have himself circumcised. Nonetheless, he's still not allowed to enter into the Mikdash. And over there, explicitly, it says that if they would be machal the avoda, right? So lishar suni, so how would we know up until this point that these people, if they would serve the Beis HaMikdash, that they would be machal the avoda? El Gomer Gemir, so it's of course we already knew it, but Yecheskel came later on and established a pasuk to support it. Gomer Gemir, etc. And therefore we already knew this din of what the big day kahuna was supposed to look like and what materials it is. Okay, Yecheskel came later on, basically reaffirmed it with psukim. So my lo yichro biyaza. What does that mean? You can't gird yourself with a belt. So Rabbi lo yichro b'makom shemazian, that you shouldn't gird yourself where the flesh swells up. Kedesanya kishehem chaygrin, when you tie your belt in chaygrin lo mata mimasnehen, it shouldn't be below your loins, too low down. V'lo malwa it's mi'atzilehen, and not above your elbows, which obviously doesn't mean you're putting it on your elbows, but it means you put your elbows here, and therefore, if let's say you put the this belt like over here, right, which is above where your elbows end, so if you put the belt like around here, that also is too high. Ella, as the Gemara continues in Testament of Keneged Atzili Yedayan, it should be opposite the elbows, which is again what a lot of people are makbid to do this. That's where people wear gartel, that they'll wear it opposite their elbows, and that is, it's demonstrating the proper place. So he's basically saying that you have to be careful when, it doesn't mean don't wear a belt. Of course the Kohen wears a belt, the Kohen Hedge and the Kohen Gadol. It just means that when you wear the belt, it should be worn in the proper way. Question, we're going to stop there. Question TB 20, not 30 rather. So this is the end of this test. So, Big Day Kahuna Merushlin Haim Ksherim. So, again, Merushlin, as we saw over here, is that they are dragging, right? They're dragging, because they're so big, right? So, let's say what I wrote. Im He Maruchim Yosim Edai Posel. Im Hegvia as Habigadim Alide Ha'avnate, right? Okay, this is correct. And you lift up, it lifts up because of the belt, right? Because you put the belt and it causes the pants to pull up so that now the legs of the pants don't go all the way down as far as they should. So that actually is a machlokas, whether it is kosher. That is the correct answer. Good luck on the test on Sunday. Ad Kan.